Okay, well, great. Thank you very much for joining us. Julie, we're glad you're here. George, Libby, thank you for joining us. Weeby and Dr. O, we're glad you're here. And we've got the GrowFood Carolina and Conservation League team. Excited to have time to talk with you. Jeffrey, thank you for your leadership and for being here. We're going to record this, and we've had a few people who couldn't join us this morning ask for it. So we're excited to see your faces. We wish we could be with you in person, but we want to give you an opportunity to be a little bit closer to the work that we've been doing through GrowFood Carolina for the past few months. And Francie, thank you for joining us, you logging in. We're glad you're here. You know, it's an obvious point that the last few months have been particularly challenging. And I don't think that any of us imagined that in 2020 we would be dealing with a triple whammy, ongoing challenge of climate change and the impacts it's having on our region and really on the world with increased flooding and sea level rise and storms, a global pandemic, and that is changing the way we live and work, and the most intense social movement toward racial equity that we've seen since the 1960s. But as with most crises, I am grateful for unexpected gifts. And one of those gifts is how GrowFood Carolina has been able to address food insecurity in our region and helping get fresh food to people who really need it, all while continuing to work with our partner farmers to keep them thriving and growing and on their farmland across the state. So while I wish we could be here together, our intention for this virtual meeting is to share some of the challenges that we faced in our work at GrowFood, how we have risen to the occasion and addressed and responded to those challenges. And along the way, some of the joy that we've experienced in this work in helping get fresh food to people and our work with the farmers. So we'll have some stories and some photos to share about that. Once we have shared, we will open it up for your questions. If you want to, you can type your question anytime during the presentation in the chat box down at the bottom of your screen. Or once we open it up, you can just raise your hand and let me know that you have something that you want to ask or a comment that you want to make. None of this would be possible without the quick thinking, nimbleness, flexibility, and resilience of our GrowFood team, and also would not be possible without the support of donors like you who have been so important to our work. So thank you. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey Schutz to say a few words. I think many of you know that Jeffrey is a past longtime board member of the Coastal Conservation League and is currently the chair of the advisory committee for GrowFood Carolina. So Jeffrey?
Good. Thank you, Laura, and thanks everybody for taking the time to join us this morning to hear about this exciting initiative. Let me provide a little bit of context of this initiative from my perspective. And a group of us met with Laura and her leadership team in mid-March. And I'm going to paraphrase what Laura had to say during that meeting. So not a quote, it's a paraphrase. We have a responsibility to serve our larger community. CCL will continue our loyalty and commitment to our farmer partners while serving the need of the Charleston community at large. So with that, mandate and strong feeling of support came the Food Box Initiative. Thank you, Laura, for that incredible support. So I've been through a number of business cycles in my career, and this is unlike any in the past, but some of the truisms are that thousands of businesses have had to rethink and repurpose their business models to survive. So I'm incredibly proud of what Anthony and his team have done and for their ability to pivot in a new direction, a new revenue source, leverage our existing staff and resources, and dramatically serve the needs of people in our community. The other thing that I would observe is while we have been a collaborative organization for the last 30 years at CCL, I'm really proud and impressed by the new level of collaboration among so many local partners, both old partners and new partners that share this common purpose. So thank you. I'm very proud. Anthony, I'm going to turn it over to you for some comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thanks so much for that. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. I also want to welcome Becca Watson, who is the farm coordinator at GrowFood Carolina. She'll be on the call and saying a few things later and available for questions as they come up. And definitely welcome Weeby and Dr. O as well. They'll be providing a few further details in their involvement and have some great stories and insights to share. So I've put up a slide here that has a timeline of our work since mid-March. And as you can see, we've tried to take advantage of many of the different opportunities that have come our way, including a federal procurement contract and state grants. I'm not going to read it, but the stories I'm going to share will align with the activities described on this timeline that you see. As we know, no one was hit harder by this spring's pandemic than local restaurants, effectively closing down in March. At GrowFood, we saw a 50% reduction in sales nearly immediately. The phone stopped ringing, the orders stopped coming, and this shift in demand was born out of necessity, really allowed us the opportunity to think creatively, pivot quickly, and take on new projects, like providing food to organizations like Butcher and Bee, who prepared food boxes for workers in the hospitality industry who lost their jobs due to this pandemic, and also figuring out a way to sell local food boxes to our supporters in the Charleston region. We also had an idea to add an option for these food box buyers to buy a box and give a box to the Low Country Food Bank. It was pretty early on. We were a bit anxious about fundraising, but Laura and Nancy had heard from our donors how much they wanted to help people affected by the coronavirus, but just didn't know how. So we added it and waited to see what happened. That's how we found ourselves reacting through this time since mid-March. Is we had no idea what the reaction was going to be to our changes. But with this project, this initiative, it was incredible. Generous donors have given nearly $23,000 from the end of April to today. That allows us to provide more than 15,000 pounds of fresh food to the food bank. Once I saw how high the need was for this food and how grateful people were to receive this fresh local produce, I knew that we wanted to try to do more. Through all of this, we had to keep staff safety as our top priority. We quickly enacted protocols to minimize human contact and interaction on both the inbound side as well as the outbound side of our operations. To maintain social distance while at work, the majority of the GrowFood staff was and still is set up to work from home. Throughout this time, we've developed a lot of new partnerships with nonprofits like 180 Place, the Charleston-based shelter that seeks to rehouse people that are homeless, Humanities Foundation, which provides low-income housing for many people in our community, and Enough Pie, an organization that seeks equitable and just growth right here in the GrowFood neighborhood, who along with the food bank are helping deliver these food boxes to people in need. We're gonna put up a few photos now, and these photos really capture the energy and positivity of these fresh fruits and vegetables, and really what we're seeing at the distribution sites. So as you see here, We are doing our best to capture the seasons, the best of the South Carolina season, and sharing it in these boxes. These photos show the excitement and discovery that people are experiencing with these boxes. You know, it's almost opening them up as a present, and kind of digging through the ingredients to find things that they're familiar with, as well as unfamiliar, and using them, and thinking of recipes and using creativity to share those recipes and thoughts with their communities and families. So to support our food box programs, in May of 2020, GrowFood Carolina enlisted a local health and wellness specialist, Weeby Ashley of Arts and Remedy Wellness, to accompany the distributed boxes at each weekly community drop-off location. We are so excited to have Weeby joining our efforts in these projects. She's been able to connect the value, the relationship, allowing recipients of these boxes to maximize the use of them. She's prepared creative things like Doritos flavored seasoning comprised of nutritional yeast and cayenne for children to add to their kale chips and get excited about eating. And she also blends these delicious fresh fruit smoothies for distribution on site, as well as sampling and tasting. And before I continue to steal her thunder, I really want to invite her to share a few of her own stories about her work and provide some additional life to these photos. Weeby?
Weeby, you're on mute. Weeby, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear? Okay. So yes, thank you for having us. It has been an honor to be a part of such a great program that you are doing for the community here in the Low Country. And just to give you a little bit of my background, I specialize in using food as a healing tool to heal. And food is the connection to heal our community, to heal the world. And so the beautiful food that you are giving out is definitely healing. We're getting great feedback from the community. They are excited. I get numerous of phone calls and emails and pictures of the meals that they are actually cooking. And they're learning how to cook kale, and they're learning how to be creative and using healthier ingredients. And so we're just grateful, like I said, to be a part of it. It is very important that we educate the community on how to use food properly, and just give them, like I said, more ideas of going towards the way of eating healthy and staying healthy, especially in the time that we're in right now. Not only physically, but spiritually and mentally and emotionally, food can help us in all those ways. Dr. O, did you have something to say?
Sure. First, I'm also appreciative and honored to be a part of this project. And I'm from Charleston, and I'm from the community that we're serving. And so the people look and are really familiar to me. And the thing that I know about the community that we're serving is that people are without places to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, and the stores that are in those communities, they sell beer, potato chips, and Doritos. And last year, I walked through the community looking at the unavailability of food in those communities, and I was alarmed, but felt sad that I didn't know what to do, and had but be concerned. And so when this opportunity came to actually feed people and to educate people about proper nutrition, I became interested in health and nutrition at a very early age, because of my own health and living in a community. I grew up in Harlem, New York, and I lived in a community of people who, like the people here, didn't know about diet and food and how food can change your life. And so at a very early age, I think I was about 25 years old, I opened my first health food store in Harlem. And I subsequently had, well, my first health food store was in the Bronx, South Bronx. And I had two health food stores, vegetarian restaurants in Harlem. And my commitment, my motto was dedicated to our health and well-being. And I'm 67 years old now, and that has been my commitment throughout my life, teaching people how to eat and to be productive in our community. I'm a professor at the College of Charleston, and I'm an anthropologist. And so, my interest pushed me to get an advanced degree so that I can come back to Charleston and go into my community and to educate people and to use my anthropological know-how, to organize. Something I didn't say, that I'm also the CEO. I'm a partner with Weeby in Arts and Remedies, Wellness, but I'm also the CEO of Gullah Society. And please visit our website, the Gullah Society, and you'll see the other works that we're doing. In Arts and Remedies, Wellness is the wellness arm of Gullah Society. And so you'll see that we're engaged in education. We're engaged in several different projects in the community. And so that's pretty much what I have to say. I'll turn it back over to Weeby.
Yes, like I said, the children, the parents, they are so excited to be receiving these food boxes. Every week when we go back, they're telling me that they're making their own smoothies. The children are, will you be back next week? Will you be back next week? So we're, like I said, we're humbled, we're honored, and we are excited to be a part of this great project. Thank you.
So if I could add another story, we provide menus for people recipes for people to look at and to learn how to use the foods in the box. And so there was a young girl, a child, who read the recipe, and she became excited, and she says, I want my mommy to make a smoothie. And she read the recipe again. Included on the recipe is you need a blender. And the child says, oh, but we don't have a blender, and those of us who are Goodwillers, as I am, I'm a Goodwiller.
So you shop at Goodwill.
And I shop at Goodwill. and I buy blenders, and just because they're so cheap, and I give them away. I buy juicers because they're so cheap, and I give them away. And maybe that's something that we could add, to what we do, because it's one thing to tell people what to do, but you have to show them the tools that they need to be able to do what they do. That's like teaching somebody to fish as opposed to fishing for them. So that's just an add-on that I'd like for us to consider. How do we do that? So I'll be quiet now.
Well, I think that's fantastic, and thank you so much, Weeby, and thank you, Dr. O. It's really powerful stuff to hear those stories and really hear what this food is doing, for these families and these communities. And we, since we began this, we've also been getting quite a few questions about how our farmers are doing. How are the farmers affected by this pandemic? What has changed on their side? Since the beginning, GrowFood has been in close communication with all of our farmers. It's either myself or one of the GrowFood staff members speaking to them and continuing that conversation week to week. In similar ways to the work that we're doing, the farmers have been reaching out to their hyper-local communities and finding ways to continue to bring in revenue and sell what is coming out of their fields. And our farmers share overwhelmingly their gratitude for our steady purchasing from them during the past few months. Many have shared that without us, they are not sure that they would have been able to survive this time. Becca, who I introduced earlier, being the farm coordinator at GrowFood Carolina, she's on the call, and I'd like to ask her to provide some additional insight into what she is hearing from our farmers. Becca?
Thank you, Anthony, and hello to everyone. Like Anthony mentioned, we've been getting a lot of questions about how our growers are doing. And I would say the answer to that was that it's really varied by producer, and it's really depended on the farmer, the product, and their markets. For example, growers who had CSAs, farm stands, and U-picks saw an overwhelming increase in the demand for their product. On the other hand, growers who sold mostly to restaurants and produced and packed products specifically for those restaurants were struggling tremendously. For example, we have an established lettuce program with 2 producers. We have an organic field-grown Little Gem lettuce and a hydroponically grown Bib lettuce program where the majority of those products were sold and marketed to restaurants. So we had to get creative. We were able to include both types of lettuces in our direct-to-consumer GrowFood box that we sold to our local community each week. This allowed us to fulfill our commitments with these growers and for us to continue to move their product. Jared Kimbler from Curios Farms has told us countless times that his farm would not be operating today and throughout this pandemic if it wasn't for GrowFood Carolina and our ability to move his lettuce. Before COVID, we had a very robust egg program with the majority of eggs being packaged in bulk and sold to restaurants. As soon as the restaurants started to close their doors, we felt the immediate impact on our egg program. We realized if we didn't pivot that we'd quickly be sitting on a lot of expired eggs. So we decided to include eggs in our direct-to-consumer GrowFood box. This turned out to be a huge success. The demand for local protein was extremely high as shelves were being emptied in the grocery stores. So not only did we fill the void of the grocery store shelves, but we were also able to continue to move this product and stay on top of that egg program. And I also had a conversation with a grower just this morning, Joey from Sylvan Farms in Saluda, South Carolina. He told us that GrowFood has been the only stable thing throughout this entire ride and described this pandemic as this long roller coaster. And so we've really been able to provide this stability in part by all these programs that we've developed and that we're participating in. So when folks ask, how are the growers doing, the answer is it really varies, but undoubtedly these programs have made a significant impact on these growers that we work with, our organization and our community, and we would not be able to fulfill these commitments and continue to move product without the help of our amazing donor base and these government programs that we're so grateful for. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Anthony.
Thanks, Becca. So we've started to see restaurant sales coming back. The sales continue to increase week to week as restaurants and different cities begin to reopen. We don't want to stop these sales to restaurants, institutions, and grocery stores, but now that we've been serving families in our community, we want to find a way to continue past the time when this government funding ends. And I think it's really needless to say, but the reason why we want to continue to do this is the need for food in our communities is great. Although more people are food insecure today than before the pandemic, many will still be in need long after the time of the pandemic being over. We know that there are many places in Charleston and all along our coast where fresh food is rare. Recipients of these food boxes have shared, and also stories from Weeby and Dr. O, these neighborhoods are never getting fresh food. It's usually only junk food, expired food, or imperfect canned goods. We have the ability to change that. There are people, communities, neighborhoods living very near our warehouse at GrowFood Carolina that don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And lastly, our staff are motivated to find ways to support farmers by providing food to people in need. While restaurant and retail sales are important for the sustainability of the organization, we believe we can do more than just restaurant and retail sales. We can explore new ways to increase the capacity of our warehouse by extending hours, bringing on volunteers, or finding other creative solutions. We have great community partners ready and willing to work with us. We want to continue to serve those in need in our community and are exploring ways to do that with donor contributions once this government funding ends. So what's next? Taking all that we've learned over the past few months, and we continue to learn every single day during this time, we've developed a proposal for a food box program that I'm calling Soil to Sustenance. This program maximizes benefit for everyone involved, but it will primarily be focused on supporting farmers and communities in need while maintaining partnerships with nonprofits to help coordinate these efforts. Nonprofits like the Low Country Food Bank, 180 Place, Enough Pie, and others. As with nearly every funding source, and especially with government funding, there are strings attached. The funding we have received so far from government sources has either limited the farmers we're able to source produce from because of special certificates required, or it dictates where the food boxes must go. More importantly, these government funding sources are unpredictable. At most, we have been able to plan by just a few weeks, which is great to get food out during a time of crisis, but not conducive to efficiency and safety planning for our staff. We could do more if we had additional flexibility and predictability. And as Becca mentioned, in the part that I and we are most excited about is the planning that we would be able to do with our farmers. Becca and I can meet with the farmers and tell them what we'll need, 1,000 pounds of sweet potatoes, 500 pounds of beans, or additional peaches, and we can guarantee pricing and timing for that product. Then we're doing all we can to increase supply that is in a way that is less risky for our farmers. And farmers will have the ability to grow different things that they normally grow for us. They can still grow the diverse commodities for our restaurants and retail customers, but also plan to produce things that families will want and need. We've done a good job so far, but I know that we can do better. As our farmers are always thinking and working 1 to 2 seasons ahead, we need to do the same and begin planning for the future. This proposal will allow us to do just that. It will allow us to plan for certainty in a time of uncertainty, ensuring the continued success of our farmers while promoting healthy neighborhoods and communities. And now I'm going to turn it over to Nancy to allow her to provide some additional details.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Anthony. Thanks. So as Anthony said, we're really, really excited about this Soil to Sustenance program. It will allow us to do we're going to call it kind of a mini campaign, a mini fundraising campaign from now until the end of July to raise enough money, hopefully for a year's worth of this food box program, Soil to Sustenance. And we've worked over, this is really new, so we just put this together in the last 10 days and came up with the budget. It's about $220,000 for the full year, which is will allow us to distribute more than 5,000 food boxes over the year, while continuing to serve our restaurant customers and other retail customers as well. So we've started this campaign just this week. We've raised $25,000 already, yay. But we've got a long ways to go. we're really hopeful. What we've seen so far is a lot of generosity from people who have been doing that buy a box, give a box, and through other programs. And we are hopeful that we might be able to garner some, in addition to individuals, some corporate support potentially, and foundation support as well. So that's going to be that's what our work is cut out for us in the next really 6 weeks, so that we can, as Anthony said, really work with the farmers then starting this summer, so that they can plant what's needed when the food box program, our food box program, Soil to Sustenance, can start as soon as the government funding ends. We don't know exactly when that's going to be. The government funding right now, the different programs, right now we think they're probably through the end of August is what we have right now. The funding sources are largely dependent on what this latest group is from the CARES Act, and there may be others that come, but we want to really be ready so that there's no break in our service to our communities in need and to our farmers. So I'm going to turn it back over to Laura.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. I think you can hear from my colleagues that we are all very excited about this program and about the experimentation that we've been doing since early March. And before opening it for questions, I want to address a question that you may have, because we've heard it from others, and that is what is a conservation organization doing providing, addressing food insecurity? And Jeffrey, thank you for the framing that you provided earlier when we were just getting started, because I believe, and I think my colleagues all agree, because we're excited about it, that we actually have an imperative. We have an opportunity to not only serve our farmers and keep farmers on their land and land in agricultural production, which is good for land conservation and serves that part of our mission. We also can now connect that part of our work with ensuring that fresh food gets to people in our community who truly need it and have limited access to it, and thereby improve the resilience of our communities and our citizens and our local food system. And to me, in my humble opinion, that is completely aligned with the mission of the Coastal Conservation League. So we're hopeful that we will be able to continue to do this, to do more, to improve the way we serve our farmers and serve the people in our region. So let's open it up in case any of you have questions or want to hear more detail about anything we've discussed.
Anthony, how is it determined where the food boxes go? Like, do Omar Mohammed's group of communities get it? Does a community request the help? What?
Yeah, so right now, Libby, we're involved in, about 4 different projects of box distribution. And so it really, the USDA program that we obtained funding from the USDA. Those boxes are going to specific partners, and it's really up to the partner as well as collaborating with us on where it goes. With Enough Pie, we're kind of bouncing back and forth between 2 neighborhoods, the Freddie Whaley Community Center as well as the Bridgeview neighborhood right behind GrowFood here. But it's really a collaborative effort from the beginning, and then also it is dictated by the source of the funding. So that's really kind of the flexibility we're looking for with an extended program of our own, is we would be able to have additional flexibility when we know neighborhoods, when there are needs, and we can kind of pivot and get additional food out to those folks. And a lot of the boxes as well are going to the Low Country Food Bank, and they're distributing it through their network of the 10 coastal counties of South Carolina.
Julie, do you have a question?
Yes, I'm just curious in terms of the government funding that you hear about that seems to be going to the Midwest because of the soybeans and corn and all that, and the lack of interaction with China right now, not buying products. Is South Carolina, just because of the scope of the farmers and because they're not dealing internationally, are they eligible? Because that seems to be a little bit longer term program, or is that not something that they would be qualified for?
I'm not sure exactly the program that you're referring to. We the Farmers to Families program that was funded. It was a $3 billion program funded by the USDA. We did have access to that funding. It's something that is pretty challenging for small producers and small wholesalers and operations like ourselves to plan for. But I think there was probably additional funding, maybe for more commodity growers such as soybean or corn producers in the Midwest. But I don't know the specifics of the program you're asking about. But we have had access to some of the USDA national funding, and the SCDA, the South Carolina Department of Agriculture, has also had funding that they've distributed throughout the state.
And when you're working with these neighborhoods, you said that you were going to look for other alternatives, but this seems to be a long-term program that's going to be consistent year after year. Or how does this work? Or is there some sort of plan of possibly getting them more involved in terms of their own food needs and then moving on and using this as an educational pivot point for healthy food, healthy diet, including availability?
Yeah, I really think, we're just getting started here, and all of the things we've already put in place and the creativity and the relationships that we've built, especially the relationship with Weeby and Dr. O and the work that they're doing. I think there's a lot of potential, and really it goes back to the ability to plan, for 12 months or 24 months into the future. Right now, we don't really know 1 week to the next or 1 month to the next what we're going to have the support or the ability to do. So once we determine that we are going to be able to offer a program like this and support out to our communities for the next 12 to 24 months, I think we'll be able to think much more creatively about these opportunities that are ahead of us.
One last question in terms of looking at X number of dollars that the farmers were getting from restaurants. And I know this is going to be a really hard prediction to make right now because everything is so much up in the air. Is this going to fill out their income and their stability then with the two programs, with the food box program and then continuing with restaurants and grocery stores and so on? Is that going to make them whole, or are they going to start seeing possibly even an increase in income and because of this new program in the long term? And I know that's hard because who knows what's going to happen with the restaurant industry.
Yeah, that the restaurant piece of that unknown is definitely a challenge to work with. But since this all began and looking forward, we want to do everything we can to continue the success of our farmers. And I am confident in saying that I think with all of these programs and initiatives, I think we can fill that piece and continue to be the person that playing that role in supporting our agricultural communities. There may be some pivoting, away from crop diversity. That's one of the big points that we're seeing now, and with the lack of restaurant sales, there's less need for 15 varietals of peppers, but there's more need for some of the larger staples, such as people focusing on just bell peppers and jalapenos rather than all the specialty, more diverse peppers, and similarly speaking for pretty much everything. So it might be scaling back on an acre or two of crop diversity and increasing staples, such as potatoes, cabbages, carrots, things like that. But I think as long as we're all able to adapt and change, we're going to be able to continue to support them in the way that we have over the course of the past 9 years.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, it's George Gephardt here. A similar question, and that is, Nancy, the fundraiser that you're doing is over the next, to support over the next several months. I am assuming, I hope, that this is also going to buy time for GrowFood and the League to determine, to explore a more permanent element, if you will, how to make this more sustainable beyond simply the next 6 months.
Right, that's our big goal with this program, is that what we've been doing since March basically is working, kind of taking advantage of every situation, trying to piece together funding so that we can keep money going to our farmers and reach people in need. And what this program, this Soil to Sustenance program, the reason we developed it was really exactly for that reason, to come up with something that's more sustainable and, you know, hopefully over the next at least 12, maybe 24 months, that we can have a program that we can continue to, that we can plan a whole year. As Anthony said, our farmers are seasons ahead that they're planning, and we need to do the same for funding. So that's exactly what this program is meant to be. Did that answer your question, George?
Yeah, I think I just want to be sure that we're looking, if this makes sense for the League and for GrowFood to do, we ought to be looking for to make it permanent, both in structure and in funding. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, George, maybe I can just chime in to underscore your point and Nancy's. Also invoking, Jeffrey, I'm invoking you again, that, you know, your reference to seeing organizations have to pivot and change their business model. I think what we're doing, we're experimenting now, and our intention is to bake this part of our programming permanently into the business model of GrowFood. And that'll take time to figure out how to do and how to make it permanent and sustain it with the funding that it needs to support it. But that's certainly our intention.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? We want to respect your time.
I have a comment.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that Weeby and I have begun to do on our own is we're farming at home and gardening at home, and I'm teaching Weeby how to farm, and my neighbor has a really nice garden, a very large garden, and you know, one of the things that I believe that's important in this work that we're doing is teaching people how to put some seeds in the ground where they are, you know, and just growing some fundamental stuff that they can grow right in their front yard or in their backyard or in buckets at home to supplement their eating. And so we were in our garden, and Weeby saw some potatoes on the ground, and she thought that my neighbor had placed the potatoes on the ground to use as fertilizers. So he came over and he said, "Did you see the potatoes?" And because, you know, he had potatoes grow out of the ground, and he had just dug them up, and they were everywhere. That was the first time that Weeby saw potatoes growing, you know. And so these people who are unfamiliar with fresh produce and vegetables, they've never seen it grown. They're used to seeing food in cans on shelves, you know. So as a part of this process, I think that it's important that we teach people how to grow simple things, again, that they can grow in buckets in their front yards. So education is an important component of this work that we do.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And also serves to enhance the resilience of communities when they know how to do that and are contributing to local food security. Okay, any other questions or comments? Anything else from the team before we let our friends go?
Great work.
Thank you. Well, that's a wonderful note to leave it on. We really appreciate your interest and your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to meet you, Weeby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks
all
very much.
too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, peace.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.